My name is Foster Eastman, and I've lived in Vancouver most of my life now, and I've witnessed the growing number of Chinese who live here and call Vancouver home. And I realized, and I'm almost embarrassed to say, how little I know about Chinese history. So I thought I should do some homework. And I immediately found it unbelievably fascinating and frightening at the same time. And in a way, it's helping me and us to get to know our Chinese neighbors a little better. The piece I'm doing today is based on the Cultural Revolution that took place from 1966 to 1976. During this period of time, artists, writers, and musicians were only allowed to produce work to promote the revolutionary ideals of socialism. Workers overthrowing the greedy landlords and capitalist pigs, living happily ever after. Unfortunately, that's not what actually happened. Millions of people were denounced, purged, and beaten to death. It was a terrible period of time in China, and with the use of these vintage records from the Cultural Revolution, I hope to create a piece of art to help remind us so that something like this never happens again, and perhaps we can all gain some humanity. The Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution was set into motion by Mao Zedong in 1966. Its goal was to enforce socialism by removing growing capitalism through the destruction of traditional and cultural elements from Chinese society while imposing Mao orthodoxy in the party. Mao believed that the political hierarchy was still dominated by bourgeois elitist elements, capitalists, and revisionists, and justified mass purges. All politicians who had any history of being anything other than dogmatically Maoist were almost immediately purged, including Liu Shaoqi, President of the People's Republic of China, the most powerful man in China after Mao. He was arrested, sent to a detention camp, tortured, and died. This nationwide campaign called upon students, workers, and peasants to carry out the task of creating a new society by destroying the four olds: old ideas, old culture, old customs, and old habits. Ancient buildings, countless artifacts, antiques, and paintings from museums and private homes were destroyed. Millions of people were persecuted as spies, capitalist roaders, revisionists, or just considered bad elements. For 10 years, China's education system was brought to a grinding halt, and most intellectuals and administrators were sent to work farms. Anyone with skills above average were considered petty bourgeois and were subjected to humiliating struggle sessions. Eventually, the army was deployed to stop the chaos. Mao began the Down to the Country campaign to dismantle the Red Guard factions. They were sent to rural farms in order to learn from peasants. This led to an entire generation of inadequately educated youths called the Lost Generation. In any case, the purpose of the Red Guards had been largely fulfilled. Mao had consolidated and regained his political power after his failure of the Great Leap Forward. The Cultural Revolution was officially repudiated by the government in 1982. The group of four led by Mao's wife, Jian Qing, became the scapegoat for the atrocities that occurred. At her trial, she exclaimed, "I was Mao's dog. I bit whomever he asked me to bite." After Mao Zedong died, Deng Xiaoping took over the government, and he declared that perhaps Mao was 70% right and 30% wrong. The reason I relate to this period of time of Chinese history is, had I been born in China, it would have been me who perhaps would have starved to death during the Great Leap Forward, where in 1960, the equivalent to the entire population of Canada starved to death. It could have been me at 2 who learned "Long Live Chairman Mao" before I even knew my own name, who played in revolutionary skits at 4 and 5, "Down with Liu Shaoqi, Death by 1,000 Cuts," who joined the Red Guards at 14, denouncing my teachers and my neighbors, and perhaps even my parents, resulting in their death. It could have been me who was sent to the countryside for years, becoming one of the lost generation. It's true that in Canada there's very little taught in our schools concerning Chinese history, especially recent Chinese history, and we need to work on that. But what I find even more troubling is how many young Chinese know even less. And of course, how Mao Zedong is revered today.